Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be discussing my review of Hannibal Season 1, Episode 1, Aperitif. At least I think that's how they pronounce it. So basically, the episode begins at this the Marlowe's house, and Will Graham is investigating the crime scene, and so basically what he is doing is investigating the crime scene of the murder of Mr. and Mrs. Marlowe. Basically what Will does is he starts this process of him getting into the killer's mind, and he figures out that once the alarm went off, that the killer tapped Mrs. Marlowe's phone to use a recording from a while ago to not get caught during the process of the murder. To me, this scene is actually very interesting because it shows Will has a great and very active imagination, something that a lot of people don't have. So with that out of the way, we cut to Will Graham giving a lecture to a class where he closes by asking the class how would they kill Mrs. Marlowe. He is soon confronted by Jack Crawford, and he is soon asked to borrow his imagination in order to help him on a case that he's working on. And once they're in Jack's office, they start talking about that three different girls that go to three different campuses have been abducted. All of them have the same eye color, hair color, same height, same weight. This killer is very specific with the young women he's choosing. And Will Graham comes up with this metaphoric equation where he says that the killer is like Willy Wonka and each girl is a chocolate bar, but one of them is his golden ticket. Never thought of it like that. We then cut to Jack and Will at the Nichols house because Elise Nichols was the killer's at least latest victim. But Will says that she got on a train, came home, fed the cat, and that's when she was taken. But as they soon mark the Nichols house as a crime scene, they discover her body is put back, and Will decides to do the process. But before he is disrupted by Beverly Katz, we see him strangle Elise Nichols in bed just like the killer, which shows how unstable Will Graham can be sometimes when not given help while he is working on a case. Just goes to show you that the people sometimes trying to get justice can do some pretty dark things. But after choking Elise Nichols, he is soon distracted by and snapped out of the process by Beverly Katz, who has found deer velvet in the wounds of Elise Nichols. Will Graham then explains to Jack Crawford that he couldn't honor her, and so this is his apology, and that he wanted to undo as much as he could, but of course failing. But after that, we soon cut to Will, who has just rescued a lost dog and has, of course, cleaned him and done all that good stuff for that cute little dog. Oh, look at that doggy, he's so cute. But yeah, this shows how nice Will Graham can be, even towards animals. Then we are soon introduced to Alana Bloom, who is really worried about Jack making Will go deeper into this case. She feels that Will is a little bit too unstable and needs psychiatric help while doing this case. So I bet you can guess who she wink wink recommends in the psychiatric I forgot. But yeah, I bet you can guess what therapist she recommends for Will. But truth be told, I will never forget the part where Will Graham says the joke, "I love the smell of urinal cake," And I'll never forget the joke. Lawrence Fishburne's Jack Crawford aggressively telling that guy to go use the ladies' room. Let's not also forget this is where Jack goes off on Will, aggressively asking him what kind of crazy is the serial killer that they're chasing. But Will states that he couldn't honor Elise Nichols, so he felt bad and he wanted to undo as much damage as he already did, but he failed in the process. And basically, to him, it's cold-blooded murder when she is not honored. And this also brings up the fact that Jack asks him, "You think he loves this woman?" Will Graham points out that he loves one of the girls and he does show a little love for the other ones. And Jack points out that there was no semen, there was no saliva, that Elise Nichols died a virgin, she stayed that way, but Will states that that's not the way he's loving them. And Jack finally labels the killer that they're chasing as a sensitive psychopath. Then we get an autopsy explaining that Elise Nichols had lung cancer because the killer apparently cut out her liver cancer, because apparently the killer cut out her liver and placed it back. This gives us our first amazing look at Mads Mikkelsen's Hannibal Lecter for the very first time, as of course he's eating what seems like a meal he has prepared himself. But this is when Jack visits Hannibal and tells him that he wants him to read a psychological profile on Will Graham. But Will notices that Hannibal is psychoanalyzing him by Hannibal Lecter making it clearly obvious. Of course, Will Graham doesn't like it, eventually leaving with only a few words left to say, saying, "Now if you excuse me, I have to go give a lecture on psychoanalyzing," leaving offended and embarrassed. This leads Jack to tell Hannibal that we shouldn't approach him that way, like forceful, and Hannibal says, I think I can get Will to see for what this cannibal truly is," or something like that. This scene shows you how Will Graham can easily be offended by some things. Like, I can be easily offended. I mean, would you want someone psychoanalyzing you without your permission? Or if you didn't even know? Nope. But that's when they discover a new body at a new crime scene, and this isn't the original killer. Instead, it's a copycat, Hannibal Lecter to be exact, but they haven't figured it out yet. No, that'll take about 2 more seasons and season 3.5 to go. But yeah, this copycat killer eventually took this girl's lungs and, of course, bestowed her upon this deer head's antlers. Yes, we do see this in the next clip. You know what? I think it's about time I admit it. I enjoy every scene with Hannibal cooking in the kitchen. And that's facts. Like it or not, it's facts. I enjoy every scene of him in the kitchen. But in this particular scene, Will Graham finally figures out who the killer is, and that he has a one only child, which is a daughter. The killer's name is Garrett Jacob Hobbs, and his daughter is Abigail Hobbs, who is also his golden ticket in the metaphor. In this particular part, when Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter are at Garrett Jacob Hobbs' workplace to find out a lot of information, Hannibal creates a distraction where he can secretly call Jacob Hobbs up and tell him that the police know and that Will Graham is coming for him because, like he says later on in the series, he was curious of what would happen. But this is where Hobbs loses it when Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter arrive at his house, eventually slitting his wife's throat open so deep that she died. Of course, Hannibal, being the curious one in this situation, decides to just watch and not do anything about it. But of course, his tune changes when he sees the poor daughter, Abigail Hobbs, struggling to survive her injury that her father caused on her after being shot by Will Graham. Hannibal decides to help, and she is then taken to the hospital where Hannibal is seen sleeping next to her, like he's sitting in a chair and holding her hand while she's in bed. It's a very touching moment, and that is the end of the episode. Well, I must say, that was a very good episode, but it is not the end. Unfortunately, our ride through the Hannibal universe and through all this cannibalistic carnage has just begun. 13 episodes for 3 seasons await us, my dear friends. This is only the beginning. But remember, you Fannibals, to always eat the rude. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you Fannibals in the next Hannibal episode review.